Hi, Genderqueer Chat. It's Nicole, and I'm filling in for Joe today on Friday. This is my first video on Genderqueer Chat. I'm very happy to help out whenever I can. This week's topic is one that I am not extremely familiar with, but an interesting topic for sure, and it definitely got me thinking about things. But the topic is basically how do um, trans and genderqueer individuals, uh, how do they deal with, how do they interact in prison, and also kind of in the law enforcement um, realm. How do law enforcement treat genderqueer people, how they interact, etc. Um, as far as the prison systems, I personally have never been to prison, and I don't know anyone that is trans or genderqueer or differently gendered that has been to prison. I can only imagine that it would be one of the most difficult and isolating experiences that a person could have. Um, Already in the main population, it's a very small percentage that is, differently gendered or even, thinks about gender. But I know that's changing, which is great. But in the prison systems, I'm assuming that it's an even smaller percentage that are going to be understanding, open, etc. So I can imagine that that would be one of the most isolating and terrible experiences that you could have as a genderqueer trans individual. As far as things that are similar to that I can relate to a little bit more, um, I believe that mentioned in one of the other videos was law enforcement and bathrooms. And I've definitely had a negative experience with law enforcement in bathrooms before in the past. It was, kind of a question of, well, is this the right bathroom? Why are you in here? It's very, when you're just trying to do something that's, personal to you, it's it makes you come undone a little bit when, um, others question where you're taking a piss. But, in this society, when you make people really uncomfortable when you push those gender boundaries and you say, I'm not really gonna adhere to this bathroom sign. I'm not really going to adhere to, your idea of who I am, etc. But I digress. But I know that maybe it's in Texas. I don't know if it's only here in the South, but gender is definitely boxed a whole lot here, and that's just in the general parts. Not even talking about prisons or anything like that. But I've definitely had negative interactions with law enforcement over my gender presentation and where I go to the bathroom. And I know how isolating that was, and I know how frustrating that was to try to explain to someone who basically just, laughs in your face and tells you that that's ridiculous and, doesn't validate any of your feelings or thoughts. And I can imagine that that's exactly what it would be like in prison. No one would be validating you for who you are, so you would be forced to hold those things in, not be able to express yourself. And I don't think that is anything that's going to be positive. But another area that I'm familiar with is a really good friend of mine, although not trans or genderqueer in identification, but very masculine in her presentation of her gender. She doesn't identify as male, but that is how she presents, and that's how she feels comfortable. And she recently went to the military, and I remember her telling me that basically she went in for the part where they just, I guess they kind of document you and send you off to basic training. They kept putting her in the wrong line for, the bathroom, because they had to take like pee tests and they had to draw blood and all this stuff, and everything was, male and female separated. And they kept, just assuming. I mean, all of her paperwork said, female, whatever, and they just, because of her presentation, she was treated horribly. She had to go to the back of the line several times because they put her in the wrong line. No one apologized, no one, they just looked at her like she was, a freak. And I mean, if that's the military, that's not even where you're being punished. I mean, that's debatable, but you're not supposed to be punished. And so I just thought that was interesting because I think that ties into this topic of being in a really micromanaged situation where not only are you told when to get up, when to eat, when to take a piss, but you're also told, you have to present in a way that is conducive to this environment. And there isn't a lot of freedom there. There isn't a lot of I know that prison is supposed to be a place where your freedom is taken away, but there has to be human aspects to everything. You have to, I think, you have to acknowledge who people are, in order to make a change. Isn't that what prison's supposed to be for, is reform? Well, if it's for reform, you can't deny who they are, or they're never, of course, it's only going to, make them hate themselves, make them commit more crimes. So I think that being genderqueer or trans in the prison systems would just be one of the most awful things that could happen. So I really feel for all those in prison that feel differently gendered. And I think that I definitely want to do more research on this topic. It's really interesting, and I'd like to know some statistics on, if there's a higher rate of suicide, if there's a higher rate of rape. It would be interesting to know. I mean, you can assume, but it would be interesting to see some numbers there. But anyway, that was a heavy topic for my first video. But I'm hoping that I can help sub in the future. And I hope you guys liked my video. And have a great one.